Old School Lane Casual Chats is brought to you by oldschoollane.blogspot.com and is associated with Manic Expression, the Comic Book Cast, the Reopen Nickelodeon Studios and Orlando, Florida Facebook page, and for entertainment's sake. Hello everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of Casual Chats. I am Patricia and I'm here with a very special guest. He is the editor-in-chief and founder of Easy Allies, and formerly he was the same for GameTrailers.com. I'm here with Brandon Jones. Welcome, Brandon.
Thank you. I do have to say I would classify myself more as co-founder of Easy Allies because we all kind of founded it at the same time. That would definitely be the major difference between that and Game Trailers is GT was just a couple of us, whereas Allies was 9 guys getting together. So.
Oh, well, thank you for clarifying that for me.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, definitely. I just want to let you know, for all of our listeners, out of all the people that I have stated on who was my biggest influence on doing content creation, I would have to say that you guys, when you used to do game trailers back in the day, you guys were like one of, if not my biggest influence. When I heard that Game Trailers was shut down, I even released a video on discussing about why Game Trailers meant so much to me, and I couldn't be more happy when you announced that you were coming back as Easy Allies.
Thank you very much. Be sure to pass that. I just mentioned earlier before we started the show that you have my email address at Easy Allies now. Send the video to that because I that actually helped me get through a lot of just weird stuff that happened in the last couple months, and I watched a lot of videos that people have made, and all the well wishes were just incredible. So thank you for the acknowledgement, and I'm happy that we were an influence.
I guess we can just start off at the beginning. So what would you say was one of your first influences in video gaming? So how did you first get introduced to it?
In video games, not necessarily journalism, just games in general?
Yeah, just games in general. We'll get to the journalism stuff later.
Yeah, the farthest I can go back is a Christmas party at a family friend's house, and the kid had Pitfall. I think that was the first. There might have been an arcade something before then, but I just can't remember it. I think that's as early as I can go back, playing Pitfall in this kid's bedroom for the Atari 2600. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out was the first game I played on the NES. And we had an Atari, but I think we only had like 2 or 3 games for it. The NES was really the beginning of gaming for me. And I really lament having never been a big PC person, but like I've always been a Mac person, and so I haven't really gamed that much on like a PC or laptop at home. I'm always just pretty much straight console. And then, with the exception of like the Dreamcast and I even owned a 3DO and a Jaguar and all sorts of weirds, the Sega CD. Like, I'm trying to think. There's only been a handful of systems that I wasn't gullible enough to go buy. Yeah, console gaming is like the greatest thing ever. So whenever that started, I jumped right in.
Wow, how were you able to afford stuff like that?
You have to be focused. I mean, it's if we want to segue into business, that's one of the reasons why, we were inclined to start something like Game Trailers is because we were already spending hundreds of dollars, every month on this ridiculous addiction / habit of ours. So if we turned it into a business or classified those as business expenses, it might make it a little more palatable.
I see. So when did that interest of gaming finally turn into something that you wanted to do for a living?
It was interesting. I had a very entrepreneurial friend in high school and college, even before that, named Jeff Groats, who left Game Trailers in 2007, 2008 to go do other ventures. And he's a very smart business mind, so he's always done really, really well for himself. And he was just determined to have an idea that would make money, to start our own business. And it was really at the beginning of the advent of video on the internet. It was the first time I could download video from IGN. It was basically, I basically like grabbed videos from IGN and started cutting our own videos, because it was the first time I had access to video. I mean, really video. Like I think after we started cutting that stuff from stuff with video we just downloaded, then we actually got like our own DV cam and started recording stuff on like, SD tape. But before that, it was just like, hey, I can download this MOV from IGN and throw it right into, Premiere or Final Cut or Media 100 and start editing. And so once I started doing that, I just got addicted to it. And when we first started the website, it was really just grabbing files and hosting them. We didn't really start to get into original content and creating our own stuff until 2005. But ever since college, I've loved editing, and so the two just kind of naturally merged.
I'm sure that with you being surrounded by games a good majority of your life, if video games and journalism wasn't like your main passion, what other career would you have probably pursued in?
Something probably mostly involving video production. If it was covering comic books or film or television, or even working directly in film, because I was a film major, and so that was kind of my trajectory before the site, this silly site that we created, actually became a business. I was on track. I was originally on track to actually do theater. I did theater for a long time, and then stopped that in college, because auditioning for anything is the most painful experience ever. So I was like, I don't want to do that for a living. And then got into film and video production. So I probably would have tried to get on a show, or tried to, buddy up with some film production companies, start making movies.
Oh, wow. Yeah, definitely the film industry, or even the entertainment industry in general, is definitely a very, very brutal...
right.
Yeah, it is very brutal. I've actually had, a handful of actors, especially voice actors, on the podcast over the years, and they, some of them can tell you that a lot of, the auditioning and hoping that you would get yourself a good job sometimes is not very easy, especially when there's steep competition. Even today, it's not as easy, but I'm sure a lot of people, they tend to try to go in towards the more independent stuff, as opposed to like trying to see if they can get themselves like a major company to notice them. So I can understand, wanting to go for your passion as opposed to trying to see if maybe, doing something on film, especially if it gets really difficult at times to, and constantly just wondering about, why am I doing this if I'm not having fun with it anymore. So I'm glad that you were able to, do something that is similar to what you wanted to do, even if you weren't doing anything regarding about video games, but also at the same time putting that love of video games into something, and then eventually having a whole bunch of people all over the world watching it.
Yeah, and it's funny to it's tricky to figure out where my real passion lies, because like it would be amazing to to work on a television show or work on a film, but even if I had that job in my spare time, I would still be playing video games just obsessively. And so it's like gaming is something that I just I can't seem to get away from, whether it's my job or whether it's just something I do in my spare time. Games are just great.
Yeah, they are great, and it's such a shame that a lot of people tend to look at games as something like time wasters or something that causes a lot of violence, which, I mean, pretty much anything can be accounted for that.
And anything can be a time waster. You can waste your time gardening,
Yeah.
Waste your time doing just about anything.
Exactly. But I think that with anything, there's... I mean, for a good majority of the things, there's no such thing as you wasting your time on anything, because you can always learn something from it. I mean,
it's true.
Yeah, I mean, even with games, let's just take something like that for example. You can learn about programming. You can learn about how to develop a story. You can develop about how to be able to paint or draw or perform music or anything like that. It's like you can be able to take anything and pursue it into your own life and do something positive with it. It's how you are able to react to what you're seeing or what you're doing is what makes it not much of a time waster, but it's something that can be productive.
Yeah, you can learn a language. Like the most modern successful language systems are basically video games. You know, like they basically try to take the whole process and make it actually fun, something that's achievement based. So you have this like reward system. You're not just like working on everything the whole time.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, games rule.
Yeah, games rule. Hashtag games rule. Anyway, so what made you decide after toying around with creating your own custom trailers that you wanted to do original content back in 2005?
I think we wanted to start doing reviews because we had the idea, and I in no way will claim to be one of the first people that was doing this, but you know, we weren't watching a lot of other stuff beyond, you know, like your IGN and your GameSpot. So I think we wanted to, instead of doing like on camera reviews, because that's a lot of what IGN and GameSpot did, was they had you know, people come in and they would stand in front of the camera, and whether that person had a camera presence or all, whether they really shouldn't, you know, because it's like if you have to write a good review and you're a good writer, like you shouldn't have to go on camera if you don't want to. But they would, you know, throw these people in front of the camera and they'd be really uncomfortable. And the review they wrote was great, but the video that went up with it was just kind of like, you know, just boring. And so we're like, what if, you know, we have a bunch of different editors, a bunch of different writers, one person does the VO, you know, like one person writes, another person cuts. So you bring in like two totally, you know, independent, you know, creative parties. And then, yeah, started doing reviews in 2005. And I think one of the other things too is we tried to secure original content in '05, trying to get exclusives from people, try to get, you know, partnerships, which is where like, you know, a lot of our partnerships with like Screw Attack and Angry Video Game Nerd and all that stuff came from. You know, my boss at the time, who was ran an animation company that actually partnered with GT eventually down the road, suggested, you know, make your own stuff. If you make your own videos, then you'll have exclusives because that stuff will be exclusive to you guys. Yeah, and we just hopefully, you know, got better and better at it over the years.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people would be interested to know about how did you pick up Screw Attack and the Angry Video Game Nerd?
That was a guy named Brad Winters, who is a very silent partner, someone that anyone who watched, you know, even you, who, you know, has gone back like a decade, you probably like never saw him on camera. And he was, he basically ran the business side while we were at Viacom of game trailers. Not so much of a gamer, not so much of a technology specialist, but a very smart business mind. And he secured Hey Ash What You Plan. He got Mega 64. He got, you know, a lot of these partnerships. And so, you know, definitely missed him when we made the move over to Defy, because it was great having him handle the business stuff. So, yeah, so that was Brad. I wish I could take credit for that, but I was not involved in that at all.
That's okay, don't worry about it. But a lot of people, whenever they go onto game trailers, whether they be watching a video review or maybe a top 10 or do a podcast or anything like that, they, for the most part, they would be hearing your voice. What made you more confident to, you know, do the voice for a good majority of these videos? Because when I first started doing podcasts and I listened to myself, I was like, oh God, that's what I sound like? I got a little bit uncomfortable. So were you in that phase in which you were kind of uncomfortable with your voice, or were you just perfectly fine?
I think I was okay with it at the time. I'm not okay with it now. Like the first 2 to 3 years are like abysmal. It's just, it took me a while to get comfortable with it. And I think that is really the trick to doing that kind of VO, is being comfortable with it and not necessarily like, oh, I'm going to do that takes and try to make my voice sound different. Like you sound the way you sound. So like, unless you're trying to do a character, or unless you're doing like heavy promo work and you're talking about BMWs or something, and like you don't want to like even be a person. But if you want to add personality to something and really speak, you know, as someone people are familiar with, if you actually are enjoying what you're doing, if you're actually like legitimately enthusiastic about something. So that's basically where I try to get with, you know, reviews is, if it's a bad review, I try to channel that anger. If it's a good review, I try to, you know, really tap into how much Ben Moore likes Persona and, you know, like really get to know these guys. And so, again, I'm not putting on an act. I'm actually like happy for these things or frustrated about these things. And so then when you're reading through it, those natural little bits of inflection where you can, you know, add a little personality to it are just obvious, because you're like, I would be frustrated about that part there. So I'm not going to, you know, be monotone the whole time. So practice makes perfect. It's nobody's good at anything. Very few people are good at something, you know, right out of the gate. It takes time.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, some people are good with writing. Some people are good with being on camera. Others are good with editing. And then there are some people who are good with voices. So You just play to your strengths, and if there's something that you're really bad at and you want to try working on it, then go for it. But if you feel like it's not very comfortable, then don't stress too much about it and just work on what you feel really comfortable with.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the great things about the digital space right now is, it's so easy to start a YouTube channel, to start a podcast. There's a lot of we're learning this now because we're buying so much equipment for Easy Allies, but it's like there are, very cheap options, to get up and running on this stuff. Again, not to make the amazing piece of art that you've always wanted to make, but just to start doing something, get it out there, get it in front of people's eyeballs, be they, fans or friends or family, and start to get feedback and then start to get better at it. And like I said, even if you don't get feedback, just doing, a podcast for, 3, 4, 5 years, you just get better at it. You get more comfortable with it. And you start to know what your fans like. You start to know what you like as far as like what you consider to be a good episode or a good performance. And you base everything off that.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the great things about your work, whether it be Game Trailers or Easy Allies, the one thing that I really did like about how it was perceived for a lot of people was that not only were they able to learn a lot about how you guys felt about a video game, but also is that you guys really told how it was. Like you didn't like try to corner into we're going to talk about this thing positively because maybe the developer slipped a few dollars into our pockets or something like that. You guys always told it honestly, and even if it was like something really really negative and a lot of people were saying something kind of positive about it, it's like you always were really honest and you guys didn't worry about what others had to say, even if it didn't was perceived by a lot of other people.
Yeah, transparency is something I'm very adamant about. It's actually something that, you can't have 100% transparency. Case in point, we were very secretive about announcing Easy Allies, and that was fun. I think we enjoyed that. I think our fans enjoyed that, us kind of like teasing them about what we were doing. But at the same time, you want to be as upfront. It's spooky now because we're beholden to our 4,000 plus patrons directly. They are the ones that are the most supporting this project of ours, and so it raises that question where like maybe should we be more transparent? Should we be more upfront about how our business is done? Because the business should certainly concern the people that are directly paying for it. So. But as much as we can, transparency is something that is a hot button issue in this industry, and it's. I think as much as you can, the general video game audience is ready for more clarity. They're ready for more honesty. They can handle it. I think it's streaming more. I found that people are like really lenient as far as like things not working and us trying to like hit our stride. And so seeing how well people respond to us opening ourselves up a little bit more and being honest about how we do things, I think it'll benefit not only just people in journalism but across the whole industry.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. So now that we know a little bit more about you, so how did you meet the other guys who were formerly from Game Trailers and now on Easy Allies?
These guys just came in through Game Trailers through the years. I probably met out of the whole group. I met Bloodworth and Damiani first. They came on to GT. Probably around 07, 08. I remember actually personally approving Bloodworth. I remember Shane Satterfield came to me and Shane gave me a list of people. He said, "Who do you like?" And I was like, "Oh, that Bloodworth guy, definitely." Damiani was a gem. Like, Damiani came on, the first thing he did was came to my office and he was like, "That Zelda retrospective you did was good, but it was mostly wrong. I would like to do a Metal Gear 1. And I was like, "Okay, cool." And so he played all the Metal Gear games, wrote it, and handed me the footage and the scripts. And I was like, great. And I got to cut the whole thing. That was my favorite retro because I just got to edit it and I actually got to just focus on the edit. And then the guys came on, Huber and Brad Ellis was probably the last one. Huber only came on a couple years ago. Ben came on, I believe, just before Huber. Ian had been an editor with us for a while. I'll never forget I believe it was the very first E3 we did with Jeff Keighley, where we were down at LA Live and we did the big E3 All Access. And I was watching the Nintendo press conference, and the guy behind me was freaking out. And I remember looking behind, being like, "Wow, that guy's really into Nintendo. I wonder wonder who that is. I think I've seen him around the office, and it was Kyle. And I had actually street passed Kyle, and I was like, who's this super depressing guy on my 3DS? And I was like, oh, I know who it is. It's that guy by Hoffman's office. And he was working on GTTV, and I just, hadn't bothered to go over and talk to him. And then he did his do's and don'ts video and created his own show and became this, Uber phenomenon. So yeah, it's really interesting that when people are introducing them, when people are meeting the Easy Allies for the first time, they look at us and they're just like, "This is a bunch of pasty white dudes. Why on earth? What would be interesting about assembling you guys together?" And it's just how things shook down. There were lots of people that were responsible for lots of layoffs over the years from Viacom and Defy. There were a lot of people that just moved on. Patrick Morales and Miguel Lopez and Marco Rosado. There were a lot of people that were involved in a lot of the best content we did at GT that just moved on to game publishing or, working with game companies or working in the private sector and just other crazy things. So it was, I imagine this big sift, and you just kind of shuffle all of these people that worked at Game Trailers over its 12-year lifespan. And we're the ones that were at it when the thing was finally shut down.
Wow. I mean, I'm glad that you guys were able to stick together even after everything that happened.
It was crazy. It was as simple as calling them over to my house and asking them if they wanted to do a thing, and they all did. Matt Blair was the only one who didn't, and I think he just wanted to do other things, which is why I expected many more people to do, and I think we all thought about it. I certainly did, looking at the opportunity and like we mentioned with, interests in film and television and other things. It's like, is life telling me to take another path, to take this opportunity and do something else? And no, going back to video games.
Yeah.
It's like, no, just keep doing that thing you're doing. You're fine.
All right. Well, it's understandable. People do move on and, pursue other things. It's perfectly fine.
Right.
So, we're going back into, your other content on game trailers and all that stuff. One of my all-time favorites was your retrospectives. I remember you were talking about the Final Fantasy one on a previous interview that you did not too long ago, which you said that took you a long time to do, and it was one of your favorite things. So, where did the idea come from?
To do retros, the idea came from Ben Moody, this guy who came on to edit for us around 2007, left 3 or 4 years later, is now a very accomplished filmmaker, actually. If you guys are curious, if you watched that Zelda retro back in the day, Ben Moody cut that, and he's currently releasing a film called Last Girl Standing, which is a horror movie. He went on, he did a couple other shows for us, but I think Prince of Persia was the first one. I think Prince of Persia 3 was coming out, and he came to me and was like, I'd like to do a thing, because I love the Prince of Persia games, I'd like to do one on the first two leading into the third one. And we contacted Ubisoft and told them we were going to do it and try to get some promotion with them. And then I think we did one on Mario Kart. It was just like a quick one episode thing. It was like 10 minutes. It was just like a super quick deal. And then we had so much fun doing those. Ben was really fired up about doing Zelda, and he said, I want to do a 5-part. It's either 5 or 6 parts. I want the last one to be a timeline episode, which was, as far as Damiani is concerned, grossly incorrect.
Yeah, looking back on it, it's vastly incorrect. But then again, nobody knew what the Zelda timeline was anyway.
No one really does know what this. I mean, Miyamoto doesn't know. Nintendo doesn't know. They don't know. I mean, I don't want to get that into a topic, but it's clear to me that they had an idea, but it was not their concern. And then after the fact, they were like you can almost kind of put a finger on the point in the timeline where they actually started building the timeline, and then they just had to make sense of what they did before. Because no matter what course you draw through the Zelda timeline, it does not make sense. There's just some things you're going to hit that wait, the sword of the hero sword was where, and that no. And then I can't remember specifically which ones we did before Final Fantasy, but
let's see. I think you also did Metroid. You did Jak and Daxter. You covered Ratchet and Clank when A Crack in Time was coming out. Let's see. There was the Castlevania one. There was the Metal Gear one.
Yeah. But specifically before we did Final Fantasy, because I had a friend of mine, it was a massive Final Fantasy fan, got me into Final Fantasy 11. I'm playing 14 with him now, and he just basically kept nudging me and was like, "Dude, we got to do Final Fantasy." And so he worked. If I put 55% of the work in, he put 40%. With 5% going to just other writers and gameplay, capturers here and there. But he wrote a huge chunk of that, played a lot of it. I'm really proud of the Final Fantasy XI episode we did, because it's feels real good to cover something like an MMO that like is here and gone. Like in a couple years, it's still up now, but in a couple years, we're going to say goodbye to Final Fantasy XI, and so it's kind of nice, even though so many of expansions have come out since we did that episode. It's kind of fun. Yeah, I did one in Star Wars, on Star Wars Galaxies, and so it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun to do an exploration of a game that you can't play that now. You can't go and look back. So it's good to get footage as long as the servers are up. But those are fun. There's no secret sauce to those. We just spend hours and hours and hours on them. It's you imagine, like, you got to break the whole thing down of what games you got to play. Then you got to play it hopefully in order. You got to store all of that somewhere. So you think about all of the footage now in HD. If you wanted to do it in HD, the Final Fantasy series would be, untold terabytes of footage. It would be ridiculous. And so, if you're going to do an episode where you're referencing all of these episodes, it's like, well, are you referencing a drive that has, 500 terabytes of information on it? Or are you just going to go through each of those folders and organize which clips you want to, it's just, there's just a lot of planning to kind of shuffle around, how much time you're spending on stuff, who's working on what game, and how you handle all that media. And so that's what, all those episodes were always so late, and, the production always took like 10 times longer than I thought it would. But it's, if you take the time and you work on something, just like Timeline, when Damiani did those, if you take a long, long time to work on something, it'll pay off. Yeah.
And they did pay off, because, the presentation and the information that we were able to get from Timeline, as well as Pop Fiction, they were so informative, and it just became one of my favorite things to watch every single week. And every time that an episode of Timeline would come out, like the Zelda one and the Kingdom Hearts one, it's just too bad that the Metal Gear one never came out. But I mean, that's okay, because you did do that quick retrospective of Peace Walker, so that was also really nice. But I mean, who knows, at some point what will happen, but knowing you guys and knowing the stuff that you are planning to do in the future, it'll definitely be well worth it.
Yeah, we're going to get back into, we put that $30,000 goal on our Patreon page almost as a joke, just kind of like, yeah, and then if we hit 30, we'll do retros. And it was like, like 4 days later, like, okay, I guess we're doing that retro. So it's great. It's, working on something like that and trying to get it to a point where you're happy with the product and then releasing it to everybody is really exciting. But, we've done so many of those, and we're so close to our audience now that knowing they're equally as excited building up to the launch of it as we are, it makes the whole process really fun, to know if you're playing through a game, that like you're getting all the best moments. And it's fun to collaborate. There's no way to do a retro all by yourself, so it's fun to talk to a Michael Damiani about, a Metal Gear, or to talk to my friend Todd about Final Fantasy and his opinions of it, or to a Michael Kozachenko about Ratchet and Clank, or a Don Casanova about Mortal Kombat. Don was very involved in that retro when we did the two-parter for Mortal Kombat. Like, that was one of his favorite franchises, and so it's fun. It's fun to learn crazy things about a series and then just move on and work on something else.
Yeah, definitely. Especially since a lot of people have different tastes on video games, like different genres, different franchises, and all that stuff. So
totally.
Also with your recent episode of Cup of Jones that you uploaded, which is Patreon exclusive, by the way, you actually answered one of my questions, which was that about another thing that you were well known in GT countdowns, which I know for a lot of people maybe they were disappointed, but your explanation on why you wouldn't do it anymore is very understandable.
Yeah, it was tricky kind of looking at our course load, the stuff that we used to do. And the reasons why we used to do it, there were all sorts of shows. Backtrack is a great example. Like Backtrack was this passion project from Daniel Bloodworth, where he would go through and he would, for some of them, he contacted, I think, BioShock. He did this amazing, all these interviews with all these different creative, musicians and writers that worked on the BioShock soundtrack. And, he took time for you to listen to the music, and it was just so artfully done. And nobody ever watched it. It just, that every single time he would do an episode, it would just get like 10,000 views. And it's like, that's not enough. It just, what's great about what we're doing now is we can do a passion project and not be swayed by view count. Like for example, we're archiving all of our stuff on a second channel called Easy Allies Plays, and those numbers aren't super great. And like I don't care. No poor download performing episode going up on Easy Ally Plays will ever sway us from streaming, because we're streaming to connect to our audience for a whole different reason. And so the actual performance of shows isn't as important as making promises directly to our patrons and then meeting those expectations. And so when we looked at the shows that we could do for our Patreon page, it was like, I got an idea. Let's not do the ones that kill us every week. Let's not do the ones that, let's put retros at 30K to make it worth it. Let's be realistic about, what we can do ourselves. Like Ian is just running away with Easy Update. That's a show he just does. He just goes off and he does it. And so creating something like a mandatory update for him to continue doing wouldn't make sense. We don't have the stage. We don't have the crew. We don't, and so all of us have had to get creative with what our shows are going to be like based on, the capabilities that we have now. And Countdown it performed really well. Again, there's no secret sauce. It was a show that 10 people worked on 5 days, all day, on every week. And so that's why we were able to do it. And we just don't have the resources to do it now. But never say never. But yeah, not a part of it right now. But thank you for the question. I love that.
Well, thank you. I understand why you can't do it, and I completely understand why it's not like a main priority at this time, because you guys are just getting started. I mean, you guys started Easy Allies like around almost a month ago, so I mean, you can't just start off like really gigantic when you have not the biggest amount of resources as you were doing back in Game Trailers, which is, like I said, you're starting off from the ground up and you're just taking things one step at a time, and that's great that, you're even doing it anyway, because I have a quick story to, tell you as well as our viewer. So yeah, a few years ago, I'm sure a lot of people know, there was the Blip shutdown. And a lot of some great colleagues that I personally knew who did a lot of video content on Blip, when, they had to either go on a hiatus for a couple of years because they felt defeated, or they just upped and quit because they felt like, with Blip shut down and YouTube wouldn't accept their videos, it's like, what could they do? And, other video, downloadable sites such as like Dailymotion or Vimeo is not exactly, one that can give you a decent amount of money compared to YouTube. So, for a lot of them, they had to either just do something else, or they had to go on a hiatus and, just think about if they wanted to continue this. But then there are some others who decided, I'm going to start again from the ground up, and I'm going to, see if I can make this work again. Even for like YouTube is not easy, because the rules of YouTube are constantly changing all the time. And, for some people, like a colleague of mine, he had his YouTube channel completely shut down, and it didn't even help as much that his computer also crashed, and the majority of his work was gone. So he had to start again from the ground up with new content, and he had to decide on whether he wanted to continue doing this or not. But because he loved it so much, he decided, I'm going to see if I can do it again. And, I'm sure, when you heard about what happened with, Game Trailers, what the decision of Define Media was, I'm sure that there was at one point in which you were thinking about, what am I going to do? I mean, should I continue this, or should I just quit and move on to another endeavor? But you guys pulled yourselves together, and you guys started again, and, if you guys keep this up, you'll be bigger and better than ever.
Yeah, that is definitely true. One thing that's really important that I think, becomes more apparent to you just with age, with experience, with just time, like spent in the industry, is that you can't really marry yourself to anything unless you completely own it. Like if you own something, then own that, keep that, I always love, I want to say his name is Bill Williamson, but I might be messing that up. It's the guy who created Calvin and Hobbes. He's notoriously...
Bill Watterson.
Bill Watterson. Never sold anything to anybody. Never. He never did any interviews. He never did... I dare you to find a photo of the guy, and...
there is a photo of him, but not a recent one.
Yeah, there's drawings of him and stuff, but it's just an extremely enigmatic artist, and one of the best comic, cartoonists of all time. And so it unless you absolutely, completely, 100% want to be crazy like that and commit to something, you have to accept the fact that, your current job might not be your job tomorrow, that you might have to start or you might have to move on to something else. That's why one of the most important things you can do in this industry, if you want to stay with it for a really long time, is make as many friends as you can, as many connections as you can. Even if you're not directly working with people, just go to TwitchCon, go to YouTube conventions, go to every chance you can get into a public forum and get to know people. Don't concern yourself so much with like, I got to get known and I have to have them respond and recognize me, but just know them. Open up a line of communication with them so that you can identify yourself as, regardless of what who you work for or what your channel name is, somebody that's producing content in the industry. And that's something that's actually, I went to a social event last night, which is people in Los Angeles, and talked to a bunch of video game friends and a bunch of journalist friends, and they were all really happy about stuff that's happened with Easy Allies. And some of them were from Defy Media, and it reminded me, it just makes me more aware that like I've made friends in this industry, and it just doesn't, Mitch Dyer just left IGN for something, we don't know what he's doing next. It's like you never know who's going to be involved in what, and you never want to be bitter. You never want to, think someone belongs in one certain place. And not to like go on and on about this, but like that's actually one concern that a lot of people have right now about Easy Allies is, what if Kyle leaves? What if Bloodworth leaves? What if Damiani leaves? And that isn't as more of a truth now than it was before. I mean, that was always the case at GT. We had people, at least Willems, left, now less than a year ago, and so. It happens. It happens in the industry, and it's a good thing actually, because people should always take whatever opportunities they feel are best for them, and you should be supportive. And on the bad side of it, long story short, always expect that the shoe's going to fall, and you're going to have to up and start something new.
Yeah, and speaking of that, there are a lot of younger people who want to get started on, some of the stuff that you guys do or I do or anybody online does. And they're afraid because, competition has gotten very steep over the years. It's like they feel that, everything has been done to death. There's already people who review movies and video games and comic books and stuff like that. How can I top them? What can I do that is completely different that somebody else didn't do a long time ago? And you know what? I mean, at some point, the people who are just coming out, they have to, sometimes take over for the people who have been around for a while. I mean, that's just the way it is, because new people come by, they do something good, and then a new, somebody younger from a few years from now comes along, they do something, and it just keeps going on and on and on. So, and not that, that the people who are doing this for a while cannot, keep up with the times. I mean, absolutely not. I mean, we always learn brand new things every single day. We're able to adapt. I mean, that's the good thing about it, is that the industry is changing all the time. Online content is changing all the time, so that anybody can be able to, do something new or old and put it in their own twist. But, for people moving on and wanting to do different things, that's perfectly fine. And there's a lot of people that I knew over the years that moved on, whether they did other content or whether they just went off to do their regular lives because they just were past doing the whole online thing. So, you know what? Bottom line is that it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, and I would say if you have, if you're somebody out there who is trying to figure out where they fit in the world and what they can do to get them, to get themselves their names out there, you can do kind of, like a clever, something like The Completionist or even something personality based like Keith Apicary or The Angry Video Game Nerd. But if you can't think of that, or you have a persona but you haven't figured it out yet, don't let that persuade you or dissuade you from just getting out there and starting. It's like it is amazing what you will learn from getting everything wrong, screwing everything up, breaking every piece of equipment you buy. Like all of that is a stepping stone, as a learning process. All of that is how you do it. It's how you get involved. No one understands this more than me, man. Like I've had a lot of success over many years of working in video games, but like my personality is I want it now. I want it to work now. I want to get it now. And it's so frustrating to have to wait to start something new and accept the fact that you're just not good at it. And it doesn't mean you're not going to be good at it and you're not going to get better at it every day, but you want to be better at it than you are right now. And that, absolutely drives me nuts. So I appreciate, I can understand the frustration there, but be true to your stuff. Start there. Get yourself out there. Introduce, the world to yourself. It'll just happen. You'll migrate towards people that are like-minded, and they'll either become your fans or your colleagues, and you can make content for them or start working with them.
Yeah, it's the same for me too. Like, just about a few weeks ago, I did my 500 subscriber live stream Q&A, and since then I gained even more subscribers from that. And it's kind of funny because the amount of subscribers that I gained over the past couple of weeks, if it would have been like 3 years ago, that would have been the same amount of subscribers I would have gained for 6 months. So you just keep on doing it. I mean, as long as you like what you're doing, as long as you can be able to put your own little twist to it, as long as you are able to be patient in presenting something that maybe along the line maybe won't get as much views as one thing or another, you just keep at it, and someday somebody will find you and they'll like your work and maybe they'll become influenced from you.
Yeah, consistency is really key. It sucks to, be 8 episodes into a show you're doing and the numbers are only slowly bouncing up, but you never know what you're going to do that's going to be incredibly relevant. Speaking of, your passion for our countdown episodes, sometimes an episode where it's like, whoa, top 10 mispronounced words in gaming, 400,000 downloads. Like, oh, okay. Like, I thought that was an extremely niche topic, but I guess that's something people want to talk about on the internet. So,
as much as I did like your countdowns, my biggest influence from Game Trailers was your retrospectives, because 4 years ago I wanted to do this gigantic retrospective about Nickelodeon, but unfortunately, because I was working with an old computer and I didn't have any knowledge of doing video editing or anything like that whatsoever, I reduced it to blog form. But I kind of wanted to do like a video version in the first place. But now, now that more information about it has been released since then, like a couple of books and stuff like that, and now that I'm more familiar with doing video editing, I want to go back to it at some point, and I want to be able to complete the thing I had my mindset on all those years ago. It's the retrospectives that really got me fascinated. I like I said before, I used to, watch them every week, every time there was a new one that was out.
But again, I mean, even with those, there was always the question of, should we work on a retrospective, because will enough people watch that, and so you don't know, really, if you work on a franchise, we're going to be doing a retrospective next month, and it's on a fairly popular franchise that's coming out with a new game this year, but I have no idea how those numbers are going to go. And so you have to, YouTube, if you really want to grow, like growing all those numbers, takes constant vigilance and adjustment. Which is, sounds contradictory to, staying the course and being consistent. But you want to be consistent with posting stuff, but you want to try to see, where the comments, where your audience is coming from, and the stuff that they want to see. It's always really sobering to produce a piece of content and have our audience be like, we just don't care about this. This is not, don't do this anymore. Not because it's bad, but just because it doesn't. It does not interest us. We always get we got a lot of blowback when we did like a Game of Thrones thing. People are like, this is TV, stop doing this. It takes time, and you just have to listen to your crew.
Right. It definitely. If somebody were to tell me that, what you're doing I don't like, then you have to take into consideration. But it's a mixed bag. Anyway, so to wrap things up, now that we're at almost the 40-minute mark. So when starting off the Easy Allies, how did you think it was going to turn out when you finally decided to announce it after your shutdown with Game Trailers?
I thought my wildest expectations were $10,000 a month. That sounded like something where we could all get maybe about $1,000 a month and do this as a side job and go out and get full-time jobs, and then this would just be basically, I mean, more than anything, a way to connect to the industry, a way to stay in touch with our publisher friends, our PR friends, our journalist friends, our audience. We really wanted to keep Twitch streaming. We're just all addicted to that, and so we just wanted to have it be big enough so we could just keep it going. So yeah, I just had my fingers crossed. Like, please just get 10. Like 10 would be great. It'd be nice to get the 5 digits. And, that would just kind of put us like right in the position where I would want us to be. That it didn't take, I think, 6 hours before we hit that. So that was my goal. Right before, one of the last things I said to Ian before we launched it is, he's like, "This is going to get 3,000. You know that, right?" And I was like, "Okay, well, we'll see how it does." But none of us said 30. None of us thought we were going to get. None of us thought we were going to be where we are now. We just hit 37, and everybody, we have a little chat channel that we all communicate through, and we were all freaking out on it. Like, I can't believe it. I can't believe we don't have a $40,000 goal yet, and we're already at 37. So,
Are you planning on increasing your goal after 50,000?
oh yeah, we've been debating what a $40,000 goal will be. Hopefully, we'll update people on that soon. But again, it's we have to kind of shuffle finances around a little bit to figure out, like, what do we have time for? What is it smart to spend money on that we can deliver at 40,000? Because originally that 20 gap between 30 and 50 is there because studios aren't cheap. So
Understood.
we needed that money to spend a studio. And again, it was just one of those crazy goals. We were like, I mean, Kind of Funny has a 50,000. We'll have a 50,000, I guess. Like for lulz. I guess we can just we'll go back to doing what we were doing. We'll set up an office, put 3 or 4 people full time in it, and do content every day. Which we're technically doing now, but more consistently.
Oh, definitely. And once again, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast, Brandon.
I love it.
Please promote or shamelessly self-plug anything that you want.
You can find Easy Allies everywhere, from Snapchat to Twitch to YouTube to Twitter. You can follow me at Trailer Jones on Twitter. That's where you can get all the updates for what we're doing. It's a fairly consistent schedule right now, but E3's coming up. We're hopefully going to have some more fun events before the end of the year, now that we're just kind of figuring out who we are and what we do. Easy Allies is where you want to go, and you'll find it all there.
All right. Well, I just want to thank you so much for being a guest. Like I said earlier, you were a massive influence to me and, the rest of the crew. So I wish you the best on luck of everything.
Thank you. I wish you luck too. Thank you for being a fan and for your support.
And that concludes this episode. Please let us know in the comments below if you've had any fond memories of game trailers, if you're really excited about the fact that the guys came back for Easy Allies, what have you been enjoying so far from the crew, and support them on Patreon. So hope to see you around in the next episode. Take care.